Recording in progress.
Good morning, Lamine.
What's up, Van?
You look very presidential today. I like the suit tie combo.
Thank you, thank you. I'm trying a little for Valentine's Day, you know.
Very, very cool, very cool. All right, guys, we're gonna get started. Thanks everybody for hopping on. We have a really exciting call today to finish our cycle of leadership master classes. Just so you guys know, we just finished our regional events. Many of you guys attended them. They were phenomenal. Really quick, Lamine, you attended the Philadelphia conference. Before we get into your topic, do you have any feedback on how that conference went? I know there were over 1,000 people there. We love these regional events, guys, on top of all the calls we do because you guys get to see each other in person. But Lamine, you were at the Philly one. I was in Orlando and I went to the LA one, but how was the experience over there in Philly?
Well, it was great. A lot of energy, a lot of, new assistant managers, a lot of networking. The guys were on point, very sharp. Everybody was great. I love it.
Yeah. And you guys know that the biggest thing that we've taken away from these meetings, and we're going to implement this for the next cycle for you guys is, we don't want the topics to drag on too long. And so what we've seen is giving you guys more difference in people, difference in interviews, different speakers from different backgrounds. So you guys can actually relate more to these people, but not have the hour sermons that we used to do. So we've taken some of this information, we've applied it. We're now going to change the structure a little bit of how we do this call to where instead of it going the full hour, we're going to try to make it go about 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes with some Q&A at the end to allow this to be more interactive. So that way, because we've seen so much great feedback from the questions. And I think sometimes the topic part of this has gone the entire hour we're going to condense that down to more about 20, 25 minutes and then leave 20 minutes for Q&A. So it's an exciting announcement. You guys aren't going to miss out on any good topics coming up. Over the next 6 weeks, actually, I should say 12 weeks, here's the topics. We got Helen talking about recruiting. It's February 28th. We got Odreen, who's phenomenal with structure, initial training. We have Jared Hill, who's one of the top owners in telecom on 5G, talking about mentality. Wade, who's kicking ass on Ready Refresh, going over team building April 11th. Aaron Namako, you guys have heard his name, April 25th, conversations. And then May 9th, we're going to have Anthony Puglia talk about opportunity. So today, guys, many of you have maybe already heard or talked to Lamine. We had him on the calendar, so he's Mr. 5G, making his rounds across the country. He's been at a lot of conferences. He ran the Atlanta conference. He spoke in the LA conference, also helped run and speak at the Philadelphia conference. But Lamine, your story, I think, is worth talking about a lot because the word opportunity gets tossed around in our business. And I think for new people, new leaders, it's important to know how that process looks because it's not like it happens overnight. And I think some people, when they join our business or our industry, they see leadership, and that's the first level of opportunity. You guys get promoted, you start taking on responsibilities, and then you see people that get into management. And for many of us, when I looked at ownership, I thought that's the opportunity, just getting to ownership. But we want to talk to you guys about even bigger picture stuff than that, because even when you become a manager and you're running an office, there's a very wide gap between people in that position. Right? There's people that are making this much money they're changing their life, they're changing their families' lives. And then there's people that, are making a living, but they're not really changing anything that dramatic. And I think it's important to tell that story because a lot of you guys, as we're seeing, are getting promoted in 5 months, 7 months, 9 months. So we want to talk to a person today that can share with you guys his journey in ownership, his journey, and the difference between being an average to above average owner, running his office, not bothering anybody, doing his thing, to now really becoming a millionaire, right? Being in the category of not only changing his life today, but changing his family's life tomorrow. Really impacting the business, impacting people. And it sounds really great, but Lamine had to go through a lot and overcome negatives in his own personal habits to do that. So I wanted him to talk to you guys today about that and share his story. So Lamine, thanks for getting on. As you know, we're going to try to keep this within our time limit today. So I have some questions for you, but let's just first, recap your situation. So right now, Lamine, you got 16 owners in your organization. You got 2 more on deck. I call him Mr. 5G. He's number 1 on the program. Literally, I don't know how many weeks of the past year and a half. I know I've nipped him in a couple, the last couple of weeks, but for the most part, Lamine is not only the number 1 guy, he's running the program. He helps drive offices across the whole business. So he's got that. His wires, you can tell me what, 50K, 60K, what are they on average? Your direct deposit to your business per week?
Yeah, on average, 55 to 65K a week.
So he's running, a $2.5 to $3 million business out of his one location, not to mention all the locations he helps oversee. And so, he's in a situation where he's only going to keep growing. But when you look at these things, it's easy to look at it and say, wow, what a great situation. But Lamine, your situation wasn't like this, not even a couple of years ago. So why don't you tell us just what was ownership like for you before COVID? Because I think that was kind of like the turning point. You've mentioned it a few times. You got into management. Tell us about who you were as a manager, how you looked at ownership. What was the money like? What was the opportunity like for you? And then what changed once COVID hit?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having me on, Van, and for the intro. But before COVID, obviously I got promoted. I came into the business. I saw the advancement, get into management, working with Verizon as a client. So obviously from the beginning, that's what was attractive to me the most. Which is coming in and running my own business and learning, the ins and outs and everything. So that's what I was striving for. As soon as I got promoted, I built my team the wrong way because all I cared about is getting promoted. I didn't care about the development. I didn't care about the habits. I didn't care about these things. But, I had to build 3 teams to actually get promoted because of, those habits and everything, because they play a big part in what we do. So once I realized it and I started applying all those things, then I got promoted within 3 months, building my team and getting promoted. So, and then once I got promoted, I expanded out to Virginia Beach from DC. And I was running the office, within the first, I think, 3 months, we went to top, to the #1 office in the country when it comes to Verizon Fios. And I honestly stayed at, #1 for about 2 years, promoted out people to Northern Virginia, to Richmond, Virginia. So all over the place and, the East Coast, basically. We were still #1. We broke some records as far as, doing 325 sales in a week on Fios. I was making okay money, like every year. Basically, I was saving anywhere between 100, 120,000 and then paying myself additional, 60, 65,000 on top. So to me, 26, 27-year-old, I was like, oh, this is great. This is, this is the life. So, my friends are just getting, graduating from college, getting entry-level jobs and stuff like that. So, I was looking at it like, I'm making all this money, they're getting entry-level jobs, I'm making, a little bit over, what my parents make and everything. So I was like, this is great. I made it. So, and, I was looking at it like basically, I arrived, I didn't have to do much, I was coming into the office, running the morning, running morning atmosphere and everything, doing some interviews. And then in the afternoon, 3 o'clock hits, I'm out of the office, I go home, either play video games or, sometimes when I used to go to the gym for a little bit, or, I live by the beach. So if it's summer, go to the beach or go shopping and stuff like that. And then come back at night for, for saddle ups for about an hour, 45 minutes and go home. So, that was my life and that was my perception of what, management was and what the opportunity was. And in my mind was, that's what I went to, went to the field and build my situation and get promoted to ownership for. So, that was the image of, a manager, so to say, at that point. So, that was, my life pre-COVID, basically.
Yeah. And one of the things we didn't mention was not only were you making, 150 to 170 grand, but before the business, you were working in security, right? You were a security guard, correct?
Yeah. So I was, I worked as a security guard while I was going to school. And I also had an internship for accounting because that's what I was going to school for, accounting and business management. But I honestly, when I found the job and the position, I dropped out of school because I was going to school at the time. I didn't want to go to school. So my dad was telling me, either you get a career or you have to go back to school basically full time and, get your degree. So that's what we moved to America for, to get a degree and, the opportunity and everything. So when I came to an interview, they broke down the advancement. And when I saw, how attractive it was as far as, because anybody could start their own business, but to get a contract with Verizon, AT&T, and all these companies, it takes a lot. And I looked at, in the interview that, they're not only going to train me in what to do, but also give me a contract at the end. And, the people that I build, I'm going to expand with those people. So it's not like here's a contract, here's a business. You have to do it all over again, start from scratch. So, the people that you build, you expand with those people. And not only that, you have, the opportunity to keep moving up basically. So, when I was in the interview, I remember like it was yesterday in the second round, they kind of fear of lost me. So I was like, oh yeah, I can't start tomorrow. I have school. And, the guy was like, well, we're interviewing other 5 people. So, what makes you different from everybody else? Like I give you a good recommendation, but the manager needs somebody that can start as early as possible. So I looked around, I was like, oh, forget it. I'll drop out of school. I'll be here tomorrow. So, and clearly, I was like, hey, I could take semester off, see how this goes. And then, if it doesn't work or whatever, I could always go back to school next semester. So, literally dropped out of school and, was there the next day and, the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. A lot of us have just unique starting points. And so many people had a plan, right? Like, okay, my plan was to, be a doctor. My plan was to do accounting. My plan was to play sports and, life gives us curveballs and we just have to adapt to it. And, when a lot of us start, we kind of just start to see, we test in the waters. I think it's a good lesson for everybody in the call. Like, I was a bartender, Lamine was working security. We didn't know. We just came in and said, hey, we're going to give this thing a shot. And it took me a good 4 or 5 weeks to figure out what the hell I was doing. And thankfully people gave me that time to figure it out. And Lamine, for you, obviously you got promoted, you're running an office, you were making good money, more money than you probably make if you were doing accounting. more money than you'd make if you were taking on other jobs. So you got satisfied, right? Is that a fair word?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened was, COVID happened, which I think, we've referenced this point because it's crazy how long ago I think it's almost 3 years ago, which doesn't even make sense to me that it's almost been 3 years since the original sort of COVID outbreak back in March 2020. But that was a turning point for many people. So for you had some outside deals, but I think a lot of organizations shrank because people couldn't work and there was a reset. So what happened to you during that time that shifted your mindset? Was it people you talked to? Was it conversations? Was it you looked at your life and you said, I became satisfied too early? What happened?
Yeah, honestly, it was all the above. That time I had 5 outside deals. I was pushing for regional and everything, and I had 25, 30 guys in my office. We were testing 5G in 3 markets before COVID. But when COVID shut down, for Virginia, we shut down for about 4 to 5 months. So we couldn't do anything for 4 to 5 months. And then at that point, my parents were in my ear, like, as far as getting another job or doing something else, or, finding a plan B or whatever. And honestly, at the time I had good money saved. I was looking at it like, hey, I could take my money, do something else, and see what else is out there. But honestly, when I compared, what I've been doing, what the opportunity is as far as what I could do, and what else is out there, it didn't make sense for me to start over somewhere else. So, when I looked at what I'm able to do in this business, that I didn't take advantage of before COVID. It opened my eyes up a little bit more. And, when we came back from COVID, I came back to my office with one team leader. My organization came back with one manager, had 3 guys in his office. So literally, between the 2 of us, it was, 5, 6 people in my organization at that point. So I looked at it like, hey, I did it before, I've been here before. I built multiple teams, I built multiple offices. So, I have no issues doing it again. So, I think when I made that decision to do it again, basically, I wanted the most out of it. Like, if I'm going to go to the field, build, new team leaders, go, build the office back up again and everything, I wanted the most out of that opportunity. And before, I was lazy because of, the money, because of everything that I was doing. There wasn't enough intensity behind what I was doing. It was like, whenever it happens type of thing. But now, when I came back, it's like a different chip on my shoulder, basically, because I wanted, the most I could get out of the opportunity, and out of the business, basically. So that's what, drove me the most when I came back. And then especially seeing, different people that came from different programs like Richard, Dana, Trang. And, I remember hearing her story right after COVID when she was pregnant, going to the office and doing all these things and building her situation in like 6 weeks. So I was like, if all these people could do it and they don't even know door to door, obviously, I've been doing it for a little bit longer, and I could definitely copy what they're doing, their work ethic and everything, and apply it to my situation, basically. So that was, the turning point.
Yeah. I think, Lamine, it was safe to say you were kind of like a man on an island, right? You got used to running your business. When it came to participating, you weren't really on all the calls. If there was an owner's call, sometimes you'd show up. If there was a rep call, you'd sometimes tell your guys. If there was a networking opportunity, maybe you do it every once in a while. In Dallas, you might ask a couple questions, but you were more in the back of the room. I remember. And that happens to all of us. And for you guys listening, even in leadership, that can happen to you, where you've been doing something for long enough, you kind of start to think all the answers. Participating in networking can come across like corny, and you don't want to give kudos to someone that you think you're better than. But at some point, right, Lamine, he had to realize his ego was sort of getting in the way of his growth and his opportunity. And so, you changed that, Lamine. And I think, as you told me, you really weren't participating, but one of the big shifts that you had was, you really started looking at networking differently. So, how much has that, just participating on calls, being someone that now you're on every call, you go to client meetings, you're running the rep calls. You would, like, if we were to rewind 4 years, no one would have ever picked you to be the guy running the rep call, you to be the guy sitting in the client meeting. What do you think changed, and how much has that impacted your ability to gain more from the business? Because you're now doing everything and you were the guy doing nothing, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure. Networking has definitely a big part to do with it. The biggest thing that I realized is it's like that saying, like whatever you've done to get to this point, it's not gonna get you to the next point. So you have to do something different to get you to the next level, basically. And for me, it was, like you said, I was in an island, I didn't network with anybody, I didn't talk to anybody. I was just, doing my thing and leave me alone type of thing. I'm delivering numbers, I'm making money, everything is good. But that's basically what changes. Networking more with Ken, talking to Larry, talking to you, talking to everybody, to Joy. So it's just being more out there and getting more information from other people, and that's basically what took my game to the next level, because I'm seeing all these things, I'm getting to know all these people, and the more I talk to people, it's like all these guys, you guys achieved a lot of things, but it's like nothing from it is, that I can't copy and do myself, basically. And that's what I realized, because before I was looking at it, well, I'm doing all these sales, what's going on, why I'm not growing as fast as I want to and stuff like that. But, obviously you want to grow some more to get to the next level, because, whatever you were doing before, it's not going to get you to the next point. So you have to do something different. And that's what, changed a little bit as far as, networking with people and stuff like that. And now I kind of do it nonstop, because you never know who you can meet, what information they could give you, how we could change, your situation in your life. So now that's the biggest thing that, that I focus on, is just, networking more, listening more, getting some advice. And if it applies to me in my situation and it helps me grow, obviously I apply it. And if it doesn't, like, who knows, one of my managers might need that same advice, or I might need it, 2-3 months from now or whatever. So I welcome, every advice, every conversation I cherish. And, just working closely with Ken and just, seeing his mindset, how he sees things, and, the bigger picture, basically, it's just opening your mind to it. It's one of those things to where, if you could dream it, you could achieve it. So, as long as you could see it, you could see more for yourself. If you work at it, you could achieve it. So that was, the shift in mindset, basically.
Yeah, I love what you said about in order to get more, you have to be willing to do more. You do things the same, the way you're doing it, you're going to keep getting the same results. And I think the word that really associates with this is sacrifices. And I know people, they say, hey, it's not a sacrifice, it's an investment, whatever you want to call it, right? But you changed your habits. You saw the version of yourself that was making 150, 160K, good living. And it doesn't mean that, people on this call have to look at it and say, hey, I want to become a millionaire in this business. Lamine has $1 million saved. He, owns a house in Vegas, has a family. That all looks great. But Lamine was willing to make sacrifices, and he changed the way he went about his daily habits. So instead of going home in the afternoons, he's now on calls. Instead of playing video games or going to the gym, he's now doing networking events for his people. He's traveling to offices. He was a road warrior while having a family, going to Indianapolis, going to Sacramento. And then we said, hey, Vegas is one of the biggest markets that we have with 5G. I'll move to Vegas. These are sacrifices that it doesn't mean a person has to make, right? There's plenty of people that can get into management, and there's nothing wrong with making 150K a year and running your business. But if you're a person that's thinking, hey, that's all I want, Lamine's a great person to talk to, because he'll teach you how to do that. He can talk about that, but then he can talk about what it's like to change gears. And when you're hanging out with guys like Ken, and you're hanging out with people, you're talking to guys like Mike Lay, or people who have really built big organizations, you see the difference in what's going on. And like Lamine said, it's not that crazy. It's just, you got, making a choice to change your habits. And so we're talking to you guys big picture, but this really all relates back to leadership and, what example that you are today, and what example you're willing to be to change your situation. And so I love that, Lamine, you've talked about that and you've made that clear. And I have a couple more questions for Lamine, but I want you guys, if you're on this call, to feel comfortable asking, questions in the chat to Lamine about the business, about, struggles he had, things he's doing today. So Lamine, now you're in this position you're in, you've lived on both sides. So can you tell someone, or you can tell the audience, have the adjustments you've made to your habits, working harder, being more accountable, communicating more, are they worth the change?
For sure. I mean, they're definitely worth the change, 100% and 1000%, if I could say that. But you know, even at this point, I feel like, you know, I'm getting a little bit, you know, going back to the old ways. So that's why I'm, you know, keep traveling and, you know, asking for more and doing more and everything. Because I don't want to get comfortable like I did before. Because that's, you know, that's my biggest thing now. It's like when I reach a certain point, I get comfortable for a little bit, and then, you know, it's like, all right, what's next? But now I kind of changed my mind to where before I even get to that point, I just start asking what's next, what else can I do and stuff like that. So that way I'm constantly staying busy and staying, you know, doing these things and stuff like that. So that way, obviously my situation keeps growing. So I don't want to get comfortable and, you know, just looking ahead, you know, to people like you, like Mike, Richard, Dana, all these people, and, you know, keep chasing those examples. So, you know, that's you know, that's my mission, and definitely, you know, 100%, you know, it changed from before and now. So you know, to say the least.
So here we got some questions coming in. And guys, just so you know, I mean, Lamine went from a couple offices in the last 2 years. He's got promoted to regional. He's going to become an NC here very, very soon. So here's a couple good questions. When you lose your crew, what steps do you go through to rebuild?
Yeah, the first thing I always, you know, I like to analyze. So see why I lost my crew. Like, what did I do? You know, I don't want to look at it like, oh, they weren't the right person or they suck at this and that. So I always look at it like, what could I've done, you know, to retain that person? Even though, you know, let's say 90% of the time, you wouldn't have retained that person. But, you know, I'd like to see what I could, you know, what I could do basically to retain that person moving forward, what I could learn from this experience moving forward. You know, every person, you know, that you lose, or every team that you lose, is a lesson. So you want to, you know, you want to pay attention to what that lesson was, not look at it just like, oh, I lost this person, I'm gonna get another interview, I'm gonna start this another person and then start training again. And that's all of it. Basically, I'm gonna play the laws of averages. So you want to take those lessons that come with it and see why you lost that team or that person, and what you could do better moving forward. And even, you know, network about it. See, you know, with other people, like, hey, I lost this person, this is what I've done, what else could I have done? And then you know, you get different information, like, you know, maybe you could have went to more dinners, maybe you should have done his break even a little bit sooner, so you could get to know this person, his expenses and what he got going on, so you can manage him better, so you can train him better, so you can network him with high performance, so he can make more money to cover his break even. So there's a lot that go into it. But you definitely, the biggest thing is analyzing why these people left or why you lost your team, so you could find the solution to prevent it from happening moving forward.
Yeah. You know, law of averages, I think we say this a lot in the field to like move on from the no. So it's good to do that. But like Lamine's saying, you got to reflect a little bit. I mean, a lot of it, if you want to get better. So when you lose someone you didn't want to lose, you know, like Lamine said, you got to figure out what happened. You got to go back. And like he said, it doesn't mean that, you know, if you'd have done everything perfect, that maybe they still would have left, but you sort of have to think of what if you could have done something better. And if you're always thinking about doing things better and you're looking at your weaknesses and you're talking to your managers, you're networking with people at bigger teams, you're going to learn and you're going to get better. I mean, anybody that's in ownership has built and lost many teams. Every time that happens, don't let it happen without a lesson being built into it that you can turn into a strength. So I love the fact that you got to look back, you got to take notes. And that's why documenting all this stuff and talking to people about it after it happens is really, really valuable. Okay. Questions are coming. So I'm glad we did it this way. Otherwise we'd have no time. Okay. How can I, as a team leader, develop other leaders within my organization? So we're talking about, you know, a leader that's building leaders in an organization.
So for sure. Yeah. So just the biggest thing is developing yourself. So you have to be the example for, you know, the other leaders, and, you know, getting to know your leaders more. So it's just, you know, taking them to dinner, you know, having one-on-one conversations, you know, getting to know their goals and developing those leaders based on, you know, their goals, not just yours. So, you know, that's the biggest thing. And that's the mistake that I've made before building a team and building leaders in my organization, is I always looked at it as, you know, I'm gonna develop this person based on my goals instead of developing this person based on their goals, which at the end of the day is gonna go hand in hand with my goals. So if I help them achieve their goals and work with them and motivate them based on their goals, I'm gonna hit my goals ultimately. So, shifting your mindset that way and just being more so, a servant to your team, basically. So just, whatever they need, I'm here to do whatever, your goals are. I'm here to help you accomplish them. like I said, ultimately that, you're going to get to your goals anyway. So it's just doing it that way instead of like, hey, I need you to do this so I could get promoted, or I need you to do this so I could, save X amount of money and all these things. So it's just shifting your mindset to where, you're helping, you're doing things for your people more basically.
So you guys hear it, kind of the same answer for you guys that are looking to build leaders in your team. The first thing that has to happen is you have to be the example that you want to create. If you're wanting to build a strong team of leaders, you got to be the strong leader first. If you want to build a leader of, or owners of an organization that are strong, you've got to be the strong one first. And then, as he said, servant leadership, you work for your guys. When they need you, you're there. It's not, hey, do this for me so I can become an owner or become an NC. I'm going to help you accomplish your goals, and all of my goals will be hit as long as I'm helping you accomplish yours. So really good stuff. Okay, I'm going to try to get some questions here. Let's see here. As a new person, what advice do you have to create a foundation for success in the management training program?
For sure. I think that's a really good question. So the biggest thing is keeping a student mentality. So, whichever point that you get, like, if you're training, go solo, get promoted to team leader, is just, keeping a student mentality and just look at yourself, I haven't arrived anywhere. So it doesn't matter what point of the business you're in, just you haven't arrived. So that way you keep that student mentality. But the biggest advice that was given to me, early on, as far as, when I started, was, if you were to make, I like cars. So basically, if you were to make like your own dream supercar, what would you do? And, I like Lamborghinis, so I'll take a body of a Lamborghini, maybe like a wheels of a Porsche, an engine of a Ferrari or whatever, and mix all of them to make the best supercar that I like. So same thing with networking and getting advice. Some advice is going to be great. Some advice might not apply to your situation right now, but you want to learn everything from everybody, the good and the bad. So that way you can make your own decisions and develop your own, your own leader, so to say. So when you make those copies, it's based on your standards and what you want and how, you want to move forward. So it's definitely, keeping that student mentality and, networking with different people in the office. And even if you network with everybody in the office with different, different offices and stuff like that, because the more information you get, the better you're going to develop yourself, and the faster you're going to develop yourself and be able to develop other people as well.
Nice. Well, student mentality, guys, you hear it from the very beginning. So it's kind of, you said you like cars, so you're building a perfect car, right? And it's almost like, I think of the Transformer movies, or, whatever the Marvel movie where the guy gets all the rings. You got to just basically become a well-rounded leader. So whatever your weaknesses are, if you're weaker at sales, you're not the top salesperson, but you can be better. Getting with people who are better than you. If you're weaker at recruiting, don't accept that. Network with someone who's better at recruiting. If you're not as good at conversations, don't accept it. Become better at conversations. Talk to people who have better conversations than you. And regardless of where you are in the training program, there's always somebody who's doing better, whether it's in your office or outside of your office. So staying a student and never being satisfied, as you guys are hearing today, is kind of like the way you always improve. As soon as you become satisfied or you think you know enough, that's really where you get stuck and you go backwards. All right. So when it comes to yourself here, Lamine, what was the major mindset change that made you go from 150K a year earner to now, having $1 million saved, making over $1 million in a year? What changed?
Honestly, I didn't want to be complacent anymore. So, the 150K was nice, but it's not, when I look at why my family moved to America and why we're here, it's not because of, they wanted me to make 150K, which is, like I said, it's good money for a lot of people. But, my parents are getting old, and, I'm looking at, I have to take care of them, help them out the same way, they took care of me when I was young, and the same reasons why we came to America. So, for me to do that, it's not going to be, I'm not going to sustain my life and inflation and all these things that I want out of, how I want to live, and also take care of my parents as well. So, and then I was looking at even the business, like I didn't join the business just to be a manager. So I wanted to be, a regional, I wanted to be a national, I wanted to, run a program, be a partner on programs and stuff like that. So, like I said, after COVID and, the work that I've put in, there isn't a better chance than now, especially, with the clients that we have, how hungry they are, and how, these clients look at face-to-face these days. Because before it was just like, oh, face-to-face is, it's nice to have, it's a little, extra 25% to our business and everything. But now we're 50, 60, 70%, to the whole industry, basically, as far as, to their business and to their income and to their growth. So And, most of the time they ask us what, our advice, to basically go to their business. So seeing all these opportunities is, it's just, I had to take advantage of it. So it's just, one of those things like, you got to want more for yourself. And that's when I realized, there's more out there to achieve. And, 150 is not going to cut it to live the life that I want and to support my family and support what I want to do in the future, basically. So,
yeah. Yeah. And you hear about this, whoever you hang out with, it's kind of like whoever you associate with is typically where you're going to end up. And I think Lamine will tell you this. And there's been times of my career where I look at it and say, I was kind of talking to people that were making in that certain range. So they looked at the world that way. Like that was what was possible. When you change who you talk to and you change the standards, because you're hanging out with people who have higher standards, it completely changes your perspective. And I think Lamine will admit, who he was talking to, who he was talking about the business, what owners he was hanging out with at R&R, all that stuff, made a difference. And when he changed that, doesn't mean he still doesn't hang out with those people and talk to them, but the mindset shift of hanging out with someone like Ken, people that are making in the, 5, tens of millions of dollars, that changes your whole gear. And that obviously made an impact. All right. Last question. How do you initiate conversations, with myself or with Ken or with people in the business that are above you, like in terms of networking up? Because you went from a guy who was you had your circle, you had your office. How did you initiate those conversations to network up, and how did you continue those relationships?
Yeah. So first, obviously, like I said, I was doing, a lot of sales, and I was number 1, number 2 and stuff like that. So that helped, when reaching out to these people, it's kind of like they see the tracker as well. So it's not like somebody random, but I think, the beginning, I think I reached out to Ken like through emails, and we had calls and everything. So it's just, reaching out to, by email or phone calls, especially now, like, we're promoting networking, like it's, like way different than before. So it's easy to pick up the phone, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I just want to network with you for 10 minutes. I have a few questions or whatever. So it makes things easier now. So just honestly, just pick up the phone and do it. Or just, if you're comfortable sending an email, just to start the introduction, send an email like, hey, this is my phone number. I'm so-and-so from this office or whatever. And, I want to network with you about X, Y, and Z. And, a lot of people will reply to you like, hey, give me a call this afternoon, or let's schedule a call for tomorrow, and, over Zoom or over the phone or whatever it is. And now it's way easier than before, because for me to see Van or Ken before, I had to drive to their office or take a flight, and, that costs a little bit more. Now, literally, you just hop on a link and, we're talking face to face. So it makes things easier. So, just, I'll say just, like Nike, just do it.
Just do it. The email part of this is tough. I think sometimes leaders send emails and they're worried, well, they don't know who I am. Always CC your owner, CC your NC when sending an email, so they kind of know who you're associated with, and it has more people on the email that can interact and talk. When I was a rookie owner, no one responded to my emails, so I had to, CC my NCs, and I had to add, my promoting owner, I'd add Matt Kelly, I'd add people to it. So people knew that, hey, I had questions and I was curious. So if you're a leader, whether it's a text message, whether it's an email, fire them away and add people to it. And even if people don't respond, keep sending them. Like, go to the next person, go to the next person. Don't stop networking because your first attempt didn't work, because you got to get your information, because you got to get promoted faster. And guys, you all know we have an amazing year ahead of us with promotions and growth, whatever programs you're on. And you just listen to a guy that 2.5 years ago was doing okay, and his entire life has changed. And Lamine realizes he's got to keep doing what he did over the last couple of years moving forward to keep improving. So there's always that next level that we're trying to get to. And that's great. And that's how we become the best version of ourselves, is we never look at our situations and become content or satisfied. We always want to go to the next gear. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's call. Lamine, thanks so much for taking the time. You're such a great example, and we all know we have more work to do. This is a great year coming up, so let's not waste this opportunity. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Lamine. Appreciate it, bud.
Yep.